And I'm sorry, I have no qualm saying this. I do this for the money that can be made on it. I like the people, I like the whatever. But if it was free and I wasn't getting paid, I wouldn't be doing it. So I do this to get paid. So I'm worried about what the net income is. How much is it that I can make at the end of the day? And these team people, like if you're putting up, we did $60 million. Okay. Spread it amongst 15 people. You should have been working at a car wash. You'd have made more money in tips, okay? So I see a lot of people that are trying to get into it that really, I think their brokers ought to tell them, like have an honest conversation. Hey man, you're not ready for it.
Shittiest transaction in my 20 years career to go to the attorney, to the notary. I sold a condo.
Oh, you're serious?
No, I'm serious. So here's what happened. I have a condo for sale. I list the condo with one of my girls. She does the listing. She puts it in. There's one parking spot. I get a buyer. She takes the buyer. She presents an offer, and she writes 2 for the parking spots.
Oh no, and you missed it?
And I missed it. And now the buyer was told by said agent that the rental value was $2,000 a month when really it's barely $1,500. So these girls, they want to get the fuck out of this transaction. They offer me $4,000 to cancel the sale. I can't do that because the gentleman is 92 years old. He's already moved the fuck out. We're closing in a few days. I said, I can't do it. When they go to the notary/attorney to sign the paperwork for the bank, the notary calls me. He's like, where's the second parking? I'm like, what second parking? Yeah, on the offer that says there's second parking. So we realize there's a fuck up. Now they say to us, here's the 3 options. Either we cancel the sale, ain't gonna happen. Either you find us a second parking lot, which we tried to do, ain't gonna happen. Or you reduce the price $15,000. I can't go back to my vendor and say, hey, $15,000 less. I'm like, okay. My total commission for this deal was $11,000. So tonight, I'm taking a $4,000 check out of my pocket, giving it to the seller, and making 0 commission. This is my worst deal in 20 years. So that's what I have to go close. Once that's done...
So the older you get, the worse you get.
Huh? Yeah, horrible. After that, we'll go for supper. So that'll be
That's okay, all right. Well, I've had some of those... You know what, though? Hopefully, that's one of those things where you make up for it. Right? In karma
yeah.
Or something. I had one buyer who just kind of scraping to get into the neighborhood, my neighborhood in St. John. And new construction home. And day of the closing, they're super excited. Didn't have a garage door opener, right? So what do? I mean, that's the cheapest thing to get out of. So you call your garage door guy, you send them. Or you ever forget the appliances? You accidentally didn't include the appliances.
Okay,
I had a couple new appliances delivered while we're at the closing. They love me, gave me referrals ever since then.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's one of those where I sold the son's house. The son referred me to the dad. They see how I've fucking stepped up. They will be referring me more business. So, yeah, absolutely.
You're a reader, dude. Glenn Stearns' book, Integrity. You know who Glenn Stearns is? Glenn Stearns had the largest private mortgage company sale in United States history. All right, he sold his company just before the recession, just before things imploded.
Are you talking about 2008?
Mm-hmm. But his story is amazing because he goes along in his book, his first 80 pages, you're like, my God, this guy's had a horrible life. But at every stage in his life, he's like, things can't be more difficult than my upbringing. I will do the right thing regardless of how much it hurts. Nothing could hurt me as much as what I've been through. And over the years, him making the hard decision to, in the deal, he goofed up, make it right no matter what it costs, has paid him back tenfold. It's called Integrity. It's the greatest. It's one of the greatest books I've read in years.
And to that point, I made a post. It's funny because I had made a post a couple of days prior saying, everybody shows when things are great. Nobody talks about when they have doubt or diarrhea. Nobody talks when they fuck up. So don't get all excited. Don't get your panties in a bunch because you see somebody who's
that's when it matters.
Super successful.
Everybody can do it when it's good and it's easy and you're making lots of money. It's when you're down on your chips
and nobody talks about it.
What are you willing to do?
2 days later, I get it in the teeth with this fucking transaction. I take my phone. I'm like, hey, to that story, I fucked up. This is what I did. And when you fuck up, you have a chance to show up and own up, and that's what I did. I got the most engagements, the most fucking likes, the most shares with that video than anything I've posted before. Nobody cares that you have the biggest sale or the biggest this or the nicest car.
Right.
So I think that there is something, like you said, in the karma of it, but it still sucks. It bites that for such a small mistake, but look, it is what it is. Saving the best for last. Tony, you flew down from Chicago this morning to come down to the broker's desk and have an honest, no bullshit conversation with me. You have been a realtor who's become a friend. And so we're going to shoot the shit a little bit and get real.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. You know, like this time, as I said when you first hit me up, like there's not very good time.
No.
And I'm like, you know what? If anything in business, which I think we talked about the state of the market today, it comes back to that, your relationships, right? Your relationships. And I said, you know what? Sebastian has been one of the greatest relationships I've had in real estate since I met you, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 years ago. That's not something that you can walk away. It's like abandoning a child or something. I don't, that type of thing. It's just so we'll come. And flight in was great. This hotel is beautiful. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I appreciate you being here. And for me, the theme, I think every chapter in your life has a certain theme. This year, I've seen the importance that people put to time, to friendships. In other words, you make time for what's important to you.
Absolutely.
I reached out to you. You said, fuck, I'm jamming. I'm busy. You know what, Seb? Just tell me when and I'll be there. And here you are. So thank you. Let's get this started.
Yeah, excellent.
Fantastic. So how do you feel about socialism? No, I'm kidding. Okay. Here's the thing. You have a depth of knowledge, you have a depth of experience. You've been a broker, which here in Canada is a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So you're an agent, you ran an agency, you did mortgages. You have a very efficient way of defending your clients, even to the point where you're going to turn the worst fucking review on Google.
Did you like that?
I like that. To say, Tony has been too hard with me. He made me pay too much for the house. And you're like, hey, that's what I was hired to do. Right. Your agent sucks, and that's what you pay for. But I also want to take this opportunity to dive a little bit deeper with you, to talk about, not just surface level stuff, not just real estate stuff, what makes you tick as a human being, some of the values that you have, some of the points that we connected on, some of the points that maybe we disagree on, but that we can have a little bit of fun with this, as I say, cognitive theater, and, provide value for the people that listen. I want to ask you something. 40 years old, 41?
43.
Jesus, time flies.
It does.
Okay. We met when I saw you for the very first time in Las Vegas. You were giving a conference at the R4 convention, the RE/MAX convention, talking about something or other. And the only way we connected is because I was sitting next to somebody who was good looking. And you're like, hey, what's going on? You remember that?
It was a different era in my life.
Yes, definitely.
Brandy, those days are over.
They're gone. I confirm. But we connected. So fast forward a little later on. I do this course because I want to diversify. I want to be more than a real estate agent. And I look into buying and investing in real estate in the United States. This was post-2008. The market has crashed. There's great opportunities. And what we had been told was a less volatile market, especially for multi-unit properties, was the Midwest, Chicago. And first thing I did was, well, fuck, who do I know in Chicago? Then you came up. We reached out to you, came down with my friend Angelisa. You showed us around. I'm going to fast forward the thing. We bought a property, 1666 Downs.
666.
It was quite a deal. But more importantly is that we developed a relationship. We developed a friendship.
Absolutely.
I used to fly down to Chicago, stay at the hotel. Now when I fly down to Chicago, I stay at your house.
Right.
I got my room.
Yeah.
And for me, that was something that was taught to me by my grandfather, the aspect of being relational, not transactional. In the last 10, 13 years, we've developed a friendship. But I want to know a little bit more about what are some of the fundamental principles that keep you going and, that have been a guidance in your life that have allowed you to navigate through thick and thin. What are some of the core principles that you operate by?
Well, relationships, all right? I grew up in a self-employed family. and actually they had a gas station. And in a gas station, there can be a lot of stress because you have to maintain the money to be able to fill the tanks. And you might have a lot of money sitting there, but you can't touch it. And we saw people, as a matter of fact, a guy who lived down the street from us growing up also owned a gas station and ended up committing suicide because he dipped into the money. Yeah. All right. My grandfather was self-employed. You see a lot of heart attacks and stress like crazy. And then that brokerage that I took over when I was 27 years old was the most productive RE/MAX brokerage in all of Illinois and in the Midwest. We were actually in Real Trend's top 500 in the United States for 5 years in a row. What I'm getting at is I saw a lot of people who were super connected to their business and only thought about it. All right. So my business has been really pretty good. And I thank God for how well it's gone. But in the back of my mind, it's that it's not that serious, and that people in their situations over, the dollar. And for myself, how I've gotten through thick or thin, it's just, this is just money. I'm not killing myself to be number one in America. My relationship with my friends, family, with God, and all of that is more important. And what I found is, it's funny how that works, is I think that actually has a tendency to somewhat make you more successful to a certain degree.
Because you detach yourself from the outcome and you attach yourself to something.
Yeah, and it's like, when I represent someone, like with that Google review, right? Like it could be $100,000 deal, it could be $900,000 deal. I think over the years, it's become more like I'm representing Sebastian. Like my job is to be your defender that you don't know how to be, can't be, don't have the experience to be, or whatever. So I have to perform as well as I can there. So that's been really a driving factor. I have a lot of fun, and motorcycles, race cars, boats, and stuff like that, right? You've seen all that. That's really my drive, is to be able to do that and have a family and have fun with all of that stuff. So for me, that's my drive, and to take it more personal than every last dollar. And it's paid off.
Okay, so let me ask you, 43, when you started out in this business, you didn't necessarily see yourself here today. In other words, running the operation. You work with Tyler. It's been, 10 years almost?
Yeah, he's really grown.
Yes. Well, grown as a man and grown as a business
As
partner.
a businessman, he's doing phenomenal.
Okay. So, but you run a tight ship. Okay. If you're to project in time, how long are you going to do this? Is there an exit strategy, or is there steady as she goes? What more do you want from the real estate business for it to bring you personally?
Right now, I'm still interested in every single deal I can do that, meets my criteria. It's got to meet the seller's criteria. Also has to meet my criteria, right? We don't take just everyone. I think, as we were talking about just prior to this, everybody should have some form of business life cycle, right? You start out working for wages, and then we can work in a business that, wages are commensurate with your performance, commissions, or whatever it is. And when you're doing that, and you have to save up a little bit of a nest fund to get you through those low points. And then you move on to bigger thinking, more investment thinking. So in two regards, obviously, some real estate transactions and deals, some investments and things like that. And then, with EXP, who I'm with right now, we have a lot of opportunity to expand your team and stay in the business without really staying in the business. These people can move on, and you don't have to be there every day. I think at some stage, fortunately, we're not digging ditches, right?
Yeah.
I don't see myself ever moving away from doing deals, but I think it could get to the point, ideally in a perfect world, I'd be 65 years old and do that deal, because that's a house I'd like to represent, or that's a property that'd be really interesting. In other words, get really picky with it.
In other words, have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get really picky. Do you see that there is a future for real estate agents, real estate brokers in 10 years from now, in 15 years from now, with all the different services, with AI, with
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know,
Why?
And you were in the business before we had met, early 2000s, the internet boom, right? The internet boom was going to take mortgage guys out of the equation, right? I mean, because a mortgage, they're not showing your house or not anything. You're trading money, right? Mortgage guys did better in the last 3 years than they've ever done. They're struggling a little bit now, but the reason is same thing with real estate is people want a person, all right, that they can place their trust and confidence in. I wish the consumer did more research and more thinking about who is this person that I'm hiring.
Is there a trend towards that? Are people more, more invested in finding out the depth of the knowledge or the service, or is it like quick and easy?
Well, good point. I think that you lead into with the National Association of Realtors lawsuit that they just lost. All right, and the potential, I don't think we'll see it happen, but there's going to be more potential for discussion about buyer's agency services and just the services as a whole. And as Tyler actually said yesterday, he's, I'm sort of glad we're under a microscope. I think that will force people to take a look, I hope, take a greater consideration into who am I hiring and why, and then there is a value of the person walking you through it. AI can tell you this is how it's going to go. You can read on the computer screen. They can put it in a voice that reads back to you that sounds very lovely. But to have a Sebastian that I can call and be like, and you know what, man, my mom just got divorced. I never thought it would happen. Here's what's going on in my life. Like, how does this part of the deal work again? How do we get out of it? What do you think is the best way to negotiate that? AI, I don't think is going to pick up on feedback from another client. I'll give you, for instance, I got hit with an inspection demand yesterday on a beautiful house. I hope the agent's not watching. This will air afterwards. Anyways, but I do things like there was one thing that was a bit excessive that you could maybe argue for that I came back and said, well, that's a bit excessive. This, that, and the next. I think I'm going to tell my client to just reject these. That's reaching for what are they going to say? Right? How are they feeling?
Okay,
right?
so there's what you're saying is that there's still room for the nuances, the understanding, the intuition, and I guess the desire to represent your client in that way. That being said, is that going to be the majority, or it's maybe this is a crude or very simplistic comparison, but there were some really good taxi drivers back then who would know the city, like this from the palm of their hand. And as good as they were, there's a system that came around that made them obsolete, Uber. So in the same vein, are you going to
take a look at that though? Hold on.
I'm holding.
Uber, when Uber came about, it wasn't because the guy's got Google Maps and we don't need to know the city. We just need to know where we
No.
It came about because it was cheaper, right?
That's my point.
So
that's exactly my
what's
point.
happened now? The government got involved. All right. So Uber is now subject to almost the same things that taxi cabs are.
Yeah, but they've made a dent in the industry.
So they did. But I've found in most locations now, taxi cab is almost the same price. And you can just hop in the damn thing. I don't need to worry about my phone where the guy's right there. Hey, taxi, like we used to do. All right. I took a cab here.
Yeah, and I saw a picture of that cab. that wouldn't have passed. So there's a.
You know what though? The ease of just hopping in.
Yeah.
I'm in a foreign country, and the guy was right there. I didn't have to worry about my app or whatever. And we're seeing that happen though. I mean, like in Vegas, I can't stand. One of the things I like about Vegas is you can get a taxi, right? I can't stand doing an Uber in Vegas. Other places are making it like that. Right. And just because there's the value of just being able to say, hey, and I think that that's what we are to regular people, right? Like AI, to get a good result out of AI, first you have to know what to input.
What to prompt, sure.
People don't know the right question to ask.
Fair enough.
You don't know what to ask. How are you going to think AI is going to give the response?
And then what's the interpretation of the answer that they give you? Fair. So we're going to be around for a little while. That's your prediction.
I feel there's a value in our service for certainly.
10 years, 20 years, 5 years? What do you think? What's your prediction?
I think indefinitely.
Oh, really?
Yes. I think as long as you have the unique nature of a house, what do we say about appraisals? Appraisals were going to go by the wayside, right? I remember, and God bless him, he's one of the best in the United States of America, Sam Sharp.
Yes.
He took the position of appraisals are going to be out the door. We can build a model. And my response was like, look, no, like the house is unique to itself. Well, we can account for that by doing a zillion of them. Okay. Like doing a zillion will make up for it with quantity, and overall it should pay off. Like ask BlackRock how that worked about buying real estate in America.
Or Zillow.
They average a 1% return. Okay. That human element is valuable. I think it's valuable. I don't see AI replacing it. I think we're going to be around.
Okay. You made a post the other day, spoke to me, and basically you ripped into people with teams, right? What they produce, what they're left with,
Sure.
The whole fucking dynamic. Recreate that for me here.
Well, Brian Buffini.
Yes.
There's several huge names in our industry of major coaches. I saw Brian Buffini, I think the first time in 2005, before I even wrote Mortgages. This concept of teams was just coming about then, but he was teaching, when do you hire another agent? And when do you hire the next agent? And he said something that always stuck with me. You hire the next person when you have an overabundance of incoming leads that you just cannot handle. You're dropping them all on the floor. All right. So we've seen the brokerage business morph into something that tolerates teams or is set up for teams. Every major brand name has some form of something for a team. Right, it's a big thing. It worked out great for some of the truly big agents, the guys who did have an overabundance. However, what happened was we see a guy with a little bit of success. All right, he's making some good money. And because he sees this, he thinks his next step is a team. He's not necessarily right for it. And they spend so much time working on this, building a team. Really what they're trying to do is work themselves out of a job. Yeah. Right? They don't want to work. All right. It's that 4-letter word that kills everything. And they're not ready for it. Their business isn't ready for it. So what happens is it just waters down the whole thing. They don't realize.
What do you mean by waters down the whole thing? The service? The net?
Well,
yeah.
Absolutely the net. Right. And I'm sorry. I have no qualm saying this. I do this for the money that can be made on it. I like the people. I like the whatever. But if it was free and I wasn't getting paid, I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do this to get paid. So I'm worried about what the net income is. How much is it that I can make at the end of the day? And these team people, like if you're putting up, we did $60 million. Okay, spread it amongst 15 people. You should have been working at a car wash. You'd have made more money in tips. Okay, so I see a lot of people that are trying to get into it that really, I think their brokers ought to tell them, like have an honest conversation. Hey man, you're not ready for it.
Yeah. In fact, just to write off of that, there's, I would say, a general consensus amongst brokers or agency owners here that they discourage the team model for obvious reasons. One, you're dealing with egos. You're dealing with a certain business within a business.
From the brokerage model, from the broker's perspective, because I was there, and I still feel the same way.
Yeah.
From the broker's perspective, you're trying to create a team. You're trying to create a brokerage within my brokerage without paying
the responsibility
for it.
And without paying for it.
You don't want to pay for it, and you don't want the responsibility. Why in the hell should I give you any kind of cut? I risked everything. I have the franchise agreement. If something happens, it happens underneath my name. Nah, you want to be a big boy, pay up. Yeah, pay up, and then let's see how you do, because I'm running my own team here. You're part of it.
Well said.
All right.
Okay.
And then you see with a brokerage, right, they don't just grow to 9 million agents, and they don't necessarily automatically make money. There's a lot of them that don't. They've already faced the issue that this agent hasn't figured out. So a lot of people, I tell them, like, look, man, step back. Hire yourself an assistant first. Get to the point where you're absolutely just inundated with work, where you can feed somebody enough. Now, you got to keep in mind, you take on a team member, this team member is going to require time and management just for them. Right? So how much are we taking away from income producing? You better have a lot of leads coming in for now. You're going to have to spend some time with this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in fact, what's interesting is that I have a lot of people who come to me starting in the industry with a little bit of a success, And their first instinct is, let me build a team, even before they build their business. Having done both, run alone, run a team, I say, hey, build your business first, get solid, get your bearings, and then later on, your first hire should be an assistant, proper management.
So that's definitely one take that certainly works. The other thing is the reason Tyler and I are successful. I saw promise in him, and I learned Renaud, who's passed, my old business partner. We said, a lot of these agents, excuse my French, they're whores, right?
I don't think that's French. I mean,
squeeze.
C'est des putes.
Yeah, that. Whatever. So they want to squeeze as much out of the guy as possible, right? Yeah. You're going to have one of two things happen, though, when you have a team. You're going to have a teammate or a person that you hire. They're either going to go up and rise and see what you're doing and realize they don't need you. Then they're going to leave. Then all that work and effort that you put in is out the door. Now we start again. Or they're going to stay here, or they're going to just not perform. Okay. The guy who stays here, perfect situation. Usually you have one of these two, though.
Yeah.
Okay. With Tyler, I saw him being successful, and I saw all these other agents who had failed that team. So I told them right off the bat, here's how this is going to work. All right. I'm going to teach you how to do this. I'm going to give you everything I possibly can. It's going to cost me time, money, and effort. All right. In return, when you start producing, I'm going to start making money off of you. You're going to start paying me back for this. We're going to reach a stage, though, where you're going to say, hey, I'm paying Tony too much money. When that happens, I want you to come to me, all right, and let me know, all right? What we'll do is we'll do a gradual shutdown of that, all right, because it wouldn't benefit you if you just jump out on your own at that stage, right? You'd have a lot of hurdles, okay? So what we'll do is we'll have a gradual coming down on that until we move to a situation where we say, hey, either we partner or we go our different ways, but we go our different ways at that time. It'll be the best for both of us. And that has been the key to our success in working together. And I wish more people had that conversation with their junior agents that they hire.
Sure.
I'm going to my job is to make money off of you. If you're not okay with that, you should leave.
Yeah. Clear expectations, anticipation of what's to come, comes from your life experience, comes from your experience in the business, and I think would serve a lot of people. Now, here in Quebec specifically, they're coming down hard on anything that's team member. You can't give an agent a referral if he brings a buyer on one of your listings, if he's part of your team. It's becoming really complex. I feel that people are going to start moving away from the team system just because it's going to be too complex. We sort of had like this far west, anything goes and everything goes, and businesses within businesses. I feel that in the next couple of years, you're going to have maybe the real solid teams that have proper systems and enough business, and then more back to basics, single agents, dual agents, and that type of thing. Well,
I think that'll be good for
the industry,
for the consumer.
Yeah.
Good for the industry. Frankly, I was surprised when when the states tolerated this to the degree that they did, and the associations made room for it in how we can put things into the MLS and acknowledge a team. Because by us in the States, you have broker and agent, right? And there's one broker for the office. Everyone else is an agent.
Yeah.
We don't care what your production is.
Yeah.
So I think, and it's for a good reason, one man has to be responsible.
Or one woman.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? I think it'll be, and that's for a good reason. I think it'll be beneficial to the consumer.
Well, the other thing is then it's sort of, I guess it muddies the water a little bit as to what the real purpose of the agent is. When you're running a team, then it's like, okay, it's all about volume. It's about GCI. It's about number of homes sold. But I guess at the end of the day, really, what's the net at the end? What's the service that you're providing? You have to understand that each and every one of these people going out there representing you represents your name, your legacy. I realized in my own team system at some point, it wasn't the lack of performance of an agent that was worrisome. Is, geez, how much business did they lose? How much, you don't know what you don't know. So I think it's a noble endeavor to say, hey, let me try to uplift the people. But the ones that are sort of in the middle, as you say, are few and far between. They're either going to fly high or they're going to drag you down. And then the time that you spend to try to lift them up It's like an endless pit.
Well,
There's
to do it right is a lot of work. And I think the agents who are trying to build, everybody's trying to build a team, I don't think they get that. Look at Gary Ashton.
Yes.
Man, that guy runs an unbelievable team. No offense to Gary Ashton whatsoever. I couldn't do that. I couldn't put that much effort into it.
Gary also hasn't sold a house since 2007. He's removed himself from the...
He's working hard.
Yeah.
There's no business that runs like that where there isn't a guy working super crazy hard. He deserves every last bit of success that he gets.
But he's surrounded himself with the right people, Deborah Beagle and
that's
his other
guy
partners.
who took it super serious. We
Yes.
see people who are just
you want to
Coldwell
emulate
Banker's number 4 agent who had a great year last year, right? And knocked down 70 sales. Now she's got a team.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay.
So in other words, you would prescribe this team application unless you meet certain strict criteria and have an honest conversation about you're going to fucking bleed yourself dry physically, mentally, and financially.
More people go broke trying to do it than make money, right? It's like realtors, right? All these people want to get in the business because the realtor makes all this money. Well, you see the guy driving the fancy car, right? You and I both know most people fail at it. Okay, you don't hear the story. Your friend doesn't tell you that he failed at it, or that he almost lost his house trying to do it. Okay, the team leader thing is the exact same way. If more people fail at that than anything, it's right for the right guy who's had an overabundance of leads. And I think our brokers, brokers are always afraid that they're going to lose an agent.
Well, sure, and with the team, then they lose.
They need to tell the agents, have a heart-to-heart with them. Look, do you really know what you're getting into here? I don't think you do.
What if there was a better support system to frame this reality in a way for it to be more efficient? In other words, set certain boundaries, certain guidelines, maybe. Don't you think that could be a possibility?
That's what your broker owner is supposed to do.
Well, sure.
That's the job of a broker owner.
Yeah, but they don't spend too much time on that.
They don't, because people are going to perform the way that they're going to perform, right? It takes a drive. And you're going to find that whether it's a broker owner or whether it's an agent. If you think you have that drive as your own, either set yourself up in the brokerage as yourself. That's really what's great about, I hate to say it, like I don't even want to talk about our brand, but that's what's great about the brand that I found.
EXP, no, that's fine.
You can do that. And then if you're a success with the guy, like Tyler and I in our system, like we would probably never leave association with each other. All right, but let's say we had a disagreement personally and just couldn't work together anymore. Fine, he can go off and do his own thing. God bless him. I hope that he's super successful. I can still receive some reward for it. Sure. Right? In our system, I bring in a guy in LA and I'm in Chicago. If that guy gets up and running, it's great. I'm not going to make the same type of returns if it was my team.
No, of course.
But I also don't have the liability of getting the next office for him, buying the computers.
Which is huge. I mean, the investment is one thing, but then we talked about liability. We talked about that transaction that I got it in the teeth actually tonight, where I'm bringing a $4,000 check. So I'm paying to sell a house, first time in 20 years. That's on me. I didn't see the mistake, but that comes with the liability of being responsible for other people. So I can't say, hey, it's my agent who made a mistake. At the end of the day, you're the one that's at bat. What I've seen and what I've felt in growing my different types of teams over the last 10 years is that it could be extremely rewarding. However, it doesn't compensate, because you said it from the beginning. We're in this business for, I guess, what it can bring us financially speaking. Nobody does this for free.
To make money. I have no problem saying it. People say about sales, right? I think there's a lot of people look at being a salesman.
We had this conversation today.
Something to be proud of.
Well, sure.
Yes, I'm selling you something. I expect to be compensated for the work that I'm doing. I think it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
Money makes the world go around. Yeah. Trying to, I want to do a great job for you, but I'm also getting paid.
That's it. Yeah. Well, I think it mitigates some of these conversations where you're consistently and in a continual fashion having to justify your value to the team agents that are there, that are expecting something, and vice versa.
I'll tell you, I'm hoping this. The NAR has been under a microscope. My position is the National Association of Realtors really hasn't ever done anything for professional standards. They talk about it, but they don't have any. I think they're in a spot right now where they have to get their act together. I think they either get their act together and develop some real professional standards and something that they really truly stand for, or they're going by the wayside, because there is going to be value, but the consumer is going to be looking at what is the real value of these people. And I think if NAR, and I don't have confidence that they will develop.
No,
something.
of course. I mean, the proof's
I
in the
think
pudding.
is
Look at the
going to
last 20
develop
years.
that says if you're going to be in this business, you have to know what you're doing, be truly committed to it.
The challenge was that is at a certain point it becomes there's too much bureaucracy, there's too much paperwork, there's too much restrictions that it sort of tends to go the other way. And this is sort of what we're feeling here in Quebec. There's more and more restrictions. Here's how it works. If I take a house for sale, right? So you hire me to sell your house. Great. Somebody calls me on that property. You know what I have to tell them? Hey, listen, I can't
represent the seller.
I represent the seller.
We have to do the same thing.
Well, okay.
I see no problem with this.
Okay. Well, maybe not as a realtor, but if you're hiring me to sell your house, you'd say, well, fuck, you want to turn off the buyer from the first call?
I still disagree. And I think this is what we lose in the NAR lawsuit.
Okay.
All right. Where they're muddying the waters is this. We moved on from, realtors were initially peddlers.
Yeah.
We were first licensed as peddlers, right? So the guy selling you a thing on the street is a peddler. And then said, no, we got to protect the seller. So listing agent, the guy selling the house was going, you buy this house, you buy this house, right? This is not how we sell a house though today. Right? We're not, in my opinion, we're not telling you, you come buy this house, it's a great house. That's not how people buy a house. All right? People buy the house that's right for them.
Sure.
Okay. So then we said the MLS is, well, me going to each individual guy, I may not find the guy, I may not know the guy. But if we take a zillion of us and we multiply us, by you're doing the same thing I'm doing, you found a guy who wasn't interested in your house, but he's interested in mine. Okay, we can pay you for that. Okay, so then they said, okay, this is what the MLS is. We're going to share commission. Okay, so commission is shared now. However, the way, at least in the States, the way that they viewed this is now this guy says, hey, Tony, I've got a guy who wants to buy your place. Okay, we will split the commission with you. Great. And the MLS says it's guaranteed to you. Technically,
question, is it 50-50 split, or how does it usually work?
However you want it to work it out, always.
Okay.
It usually ends up close to 50-50.
Okay.
But whatever. All right. So the laws viewed it as the seller was paying, so this guy who had the buyer was actually representing the seller, even though he had the relationship with the buyer first, because it was who's paying is dominating.
Got it.
Okay, so then what happened is they looked at this and they said, no, that's wrong. Nobody's really protecting the buyer and everybody's getting paid. There's these two guys. How about we say this guy represents the buyer and the buyer's interest only? So now we need to disclose who is representing who, because this guy was thinking that that agent was representing him because he was working with him since before this house ever came on the market. All right. And then the state said, nah. When you went to work for this guy when he sold you that house. Well, that's bullshit. That was my guy. Well, sorry, he wasn't working for you. He was working for the seller.
Yeah.
No, I want my own guy. Okay, so then they said, now we take this amount that we're offering and we make it unilateral offering, but each agent is their own. One of the things I take issue with in the States, and actually in Illinois, in Indiana, in Illinois, I know the number one complaint is undisclosed dual agency, which is what you speak of. I'm selling the house, a guy comes and he thought I was working for him. All right. I have actually never done it once in my career. I found that we have a thing called no agency. It's a disclosure. I think I'm one of the only guys too, like I said, in that book Integrity, I feel like you should do the right thing. I disclose, when people come into an open house or whatever, I represent the seller. I don't want to be sued for that. I don't want there any misunderstanding, because you cannot sort that situation out.
Okay, fine. So let me fast track. Is there any scenario in which you do a double representation and you feel that there is integrity in that transaction?
No.
Okay, so
here's
simple.
why. The buyer wants what? Lowest price possible. Seller wants the highest price possible. How are you supposed to represent both? Okay, so we have two options. We have no agency or dual agency. No agency to the buyer means I maintain my position. My seller was there first. And I've found that people are okay with that. The conversation goes like this: Sebastian, I represent the seller. All right. You got a couple different options. You can either hire your own agent, right? I have it set up to pay a co-op, or I can work you through the whole thing. Anything my guy tells me has to remain confidential. Anything you tell me can go directly to him. However, I have to be honest about the contracts. I can walk you through the whole thing, and I'm a direct connection to the seller. Would you rather hire your own agent, or would you rather sign this non-agency thing? And with us, you're going to have an attorney in the deal, whatever. Of course, I'd rather sign this non-agency thing. It protects me. I've clearly notified him that I'm not representing him.
Well, in fact, because this is something that's relatively new, I've found that by disclosing this upfront, it actually makes people want to work with me even more.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this is great. You're honest. Well, it's okay, but I have to do it. I have to disclose. Now, legality aside, do you feel that you can actually come out with a win-win transaction, or is it always a win-lose?
Well, so how did I respond to that Google person?
Well, with no holds barred, I would say.
No, what did I tell her? She was the buyer, and I represented the seller.
Yeah.
I told her, hey, look, I represented the seller.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with the way that I handle, and people have been fine with it. And the funny thing is, I've had zero problems with no agency. All right. But I'm completely fine with you're a grown man. I'm telling you, I represent them.
Yeah.
I'm happy to try to make it happen, however, and I'll be as agreeable as possible. My job is to represent them. And whatever you want to do, I'm going to put it down on paper for you, and I'll bring it to them. All right. But just like I told that buyer's agent in that deal, I'm not doing that. No, we're not doing this. We're not whatever.
Okay, so let me ask you, though. That's all fine on paper, but at the end of the day, you would still pocket the total commission.
Absolutely.
Okay, so great, you're representing the seller, but at what point are you going to be as feisty as you are in representing your seller if you know that you're going to represent the buyer as well, if they have a no agency clause signed?
That's why you want to hire an agent that's experienced, that does enough transactions, that doesn't need your deal.
Yeah, but these are the outliers. These are...
I get it. You're right. It's tempting to do both. But in dual agency, where there isn't that disclosure, it's much more so. And at least, and on that situation, the buyer on the other end thinks you are representing him.
So back to the point we were making, coming down on teams, because that was the system. I'm representing the seller, the vendor. You come to me as a buyer. I don't represent you. I send you somebody from the team, but at the end of the day, it's the same.
It's always been a tricky one. Yeah. Okay, because at the end of the day, you're with the same brokerage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same brokerage, same office.
And you're supposed to be making that disclosure. So with us, the way they've said that is, you're supposed to keep your files under lock and cabinet. Well, this is 1984. No. Everything's electronic. It's a tricky situation.
Do you use email for communication?
It's a tricky one. Yeah. All right. I think disclosure needs to be made. Disclosure will save you in a lot of things. And I think people are tempted to not disclose because they're afraid it's going to kill the deal.
Of course.
And I think if you're really just honest with people, I tell people all the time, like agents, like my job is to work for my seller. Like the way that I represent them, it's not that I'm being a jerk to you. I have a job to do.
Yeah.
This is business.
Well, the other thing is this, in this day and age, I think that there's enough information out there that it would be really unlikely that you would get somebody to pay, $100,000 more than what the property's worth, or is there still that possibility where you could truly mislead a buyer?
So I take the integrity thing super seriously. However, like when I'm in that situation, it's my listing. We've got offers going over. Of course, I want to get paid more. I've got the no agency thing signed with the guy. I will ask my seller, hey, look, I'd love to get paid twice as much. Hopefully your seller's cool and really likes you at that stage because of what's going on. Look, this guy is as good of a financial credit profile. If he is, if he's not, you got to be honest.
You got to be honest. Sure, of course.
All right. But if he is, like, look, do you mind if I tell the guy, here's where we're at on offers, and if he'll beat it?
Are you allowed to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're not.
You're not?
No, it's confidential. What do you mean by where are we at? So you have two offers, right? One of them, no agency, you're representing both.
Yeah.
The other one with a collab. You can go to your buyer, the no agency, and say, hey, listen, we have an offer for 500. Can you go to 510?
100%.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? We can't do that.
You should be able to. So you guys are catching up. I mean, you're a bit slow to the game on this whole disclosure thing.
Okay.
But that, you see, clamp down on the wrong things up here.
Let's just say a lot of things are clamped down on the wrong things, but that'll be another broker's desk.
That's been the nexus of your challenge since your formation
Awesome.
here.
Enough real estate. I can listen to you talk about real estate all day long, and we're going to do it more often. Last time we filmed the video, I think it was in your bathtub.
Yes.
Remember that. But I want to end this segment, if you will, a little bit about you, a little bit about some of the things that, we started talking about. You're reading a book, or you said you read the book Integrity.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that. Why does it speak to you?
And
what exactly is the book? Who wrote it?
Glenn Stearns wrote
Glenn Stern.
And Glenn Stearns Capital, they were the largest private mortgage company in the United States of America. And he was running them while I was in the mortgage business. So that's why,
Yeah, spoke to you.
And he went through the recession and all the pressure on mortgage companies and all the default. So, and he's heavily involved. He's a primary stakeholder in EXP. He owns a lot of stock.
Okay.
So we were with our EXP Icon group. If you hit Icon, they have a special breakfast for you at their convention. And this last year, each of us received a copy of his book, and I'm a reader, so I read it. But he talks about building the company. He talks about starting out as youth, then building the company, and then the tribulations that he went through and the challenges. And he talks about really doing the right thing. And it really hit home with me. I'm a Christian. I try to do the right thing. And one of the things that I tell people in business about myself is, look, there's people that love me and there's people that hate me. There's a lot of realtors that really hate me, okay? But there's nobody that tells you I lied to them, all right? And I hope, if anything, that's my legacy. I don't mind if people say, man, that guy was an asshole. Well, you're on the other side of a deal from me. Yeah. Well, it is what it is. But they didn't say that I snaked them out of it or that I lied to. So that book struck me, and his whole thing is, the harder that it got, there's some really difficult situations for him to either own up to what he had to and do the right thing. Every time it got worse that he owned up to what he had to, as bad as the consequences seemed, it ended up making all the difference on the other end. Yeah. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Owning up to it. What were some of the, I would say, pillars that allowed him to get through some of these tough situations? Does he talk about that? So let me share something. In the last 2-3 years, I've had certain challenges as well, shifting my business, personal stuff. And when the shit hit the fan and when it got to the worst, I broke it down to 2 things. Number 1, gratitude. I always find a way to be grateful for something or someone. And that, I think, changes your mindset from victimization to feeling sorry for yourself or trying to, to have frustration, and just bringing it back to, okay, I still got this. The other thing, and I talked about it the other day, was I always picture the worst case scenario. Something happens, let me bring it down as bad as I can, bring it to fucking hell, and then work my way up and say, okay, well, if I were to lose everything, well, I can still, I still have my kids, I still have my health. I can move to my dad's, I'll move to Tony's. Exactly. And then work your way up from there and say, well, finally, it's maybe not as bad as it seems. And then you say, well, if I don't know the answer as to how I'm going to get through the week, let me get through the day. And if I don't have the answer for the day, let me get through this hour. And sometimes there's nothing but to sit still, fucking let the storm pass. It's okay, let's start again tomorrow. Yeah. So that's what worked for me. What worked for this guy?
Well, I think he realized nothing was ever going to get as bad as what his upbringing was.
Okay, good. And we'll try to condense. I mean, I can speak to you for three hours. Nothing is as bad as whatever he lived in his childhood or early adulthood. Yeah. Okay, so here's my question to you. Can somebody who hasn't been through these types of situation, whatever adversity, can somebody who has not faced adversity be truly successful? Or is it part and parcel? Do you need to go through shit to be a strong leader, to be a good person?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody's different, right? Your version of suffering is different than mine, is different than his, is different than anyone else's, right? So I think, we frame it like that. And same thing with success. You could have been born to parents who, to you or I, may seem like they're really successful, but to this guy is to the kid is like, that's really nothing. He sees these other people that he wants to aspire to. All right. So everything is relative. I don't go for that. I've seen these people, you can't succeed until you've hit rock bottom. Bullshit. All right. Yeah. Donald Trump. All right. I don't know that he's right. People say, oh, he's born with a silver spoon. But by comparison to what his father built, he built way more. And none of us know of him hitting a rock bottom because there was no rock bottom to ever hit, right? Daddy had money at the end of the day. Okay. So I don't really go for that. I think everybody is on their own
But he's
path.
still, we're talking about that, faced adversity. You have...
Yeah, absolutely faced adversity. What you were asking though is like, can you have like ultimate success? And I think without
facing
these people who say like, I did it because I hit rock bottom. Definitely that's motivating. All right. But you don't think that like you got to hit rock bottom to be able to succeed. I want people around.
Well, okay, let me frame it the other way then. Surviving affluence. You grow up in a place that
terrible.
Well,
I wish I'd have had that problem. Surviving all of this affluence.
Well, how many people do you know that have exactly that silver spoon, that don't necessarily have, the dominant motivation to go out there because it's framed in a way like can the people that I speak to that have a certain level of success, hear me out. And I would say there is a commonality in which their concern for their kids is how the hell are they going to be as driven as I am? The fact that I give them everything to make sure that their path is good. That's my question.
Man, that's a long conversation. I definitely think they can do it. I can tell you this. Like my parents, one of the things that they did for me was the day that I graduated college. And I knew this was coming. I was warned about it. My dad sat me down at breakfast, had made me breakfast. And is everything good? Yeah. And then I'll be right back. Goes down the hall to his office, comes back with a calendar, sets the calendar down. I'm so proud of you. Graduated college, first son graduated college. Do you know what this date is? Calendar. I said, it's the first of the month. You're smart, but you're not that smart. That's when rent's due. Okay. This was 20 something years ago, and rent was $750 a month, and it was due in like a month. All right, put that into today's standards, that'd be like $2 grand. Okay, so he's, here's how much it is, and he was serious, and I knew he's like, if you don't pay me within 10 days, $100 late fee. Don't pay me by the 15th, eviction starts. And if you don't think, this is how I got into the mortgage business. People thought I was joking and kidding. Not my parents were in a position with their own business. They could have kept me around for way longer than what most people could have bought me. I could still be living with them today. All right? I knew that it was ending. So I think parents have a role in creating responsibility. I think it has to come down to responsibilities. But in the grand scheme of things, this book that I'm reading, The Laws of Human Nature, I was reading by Robert Greene. Fantastic. So many of these things come down to like your childhood. Like your relationship with your mom when you were like on the tit. It's what it comes down to. So, I think everybody kind of starts there. What's your outlook? What are you feeding yourself? Who are you surrounding yourself with? You've been around so many good influencers and influences that even though you were struggling, you knew inside what you had to do. You knew you could overcome, and you knew that you would, and you were forward thinking. You get yourself through it, right? And you're on the path now. There's a lot to it. Okay. It's complex.
Well, it is, and thank God it is, because if not, it'd be boring as hell. 2 quick questions I like to ask all my guests. If you can go back when you were 20 years old or 23, before your dad had the conversations by the first of the month, if there was a piece of advice that you can give yourself, what would it be? Yeah,
that's heavy.
I know. I'm trying to get real here.
I would tell people, I would tell myself to, when you look at other people, they truly are the same as you are, regardless of how much money they have or don't have. You should approach as many people as you possibly can who are in a position that you'd like to attain to someday. Get to know them and ask people. Do not be afraid to ask people more successful than you how they did it. Because as you and I have learned, people who are successful love to tell you how.
Sure. And sometimes that is because they truly aim for a significance where they want to share their success. And sometimes it was because they're full of themselves.
I would tell myself that. I didn't really know that. I think one thing I intuitively knew that I wish people would impress more on their kids, or I would also tell myself, is make friends with as many people as possible. Making friends is as important, if not more important, than your studies, than your anything else.
Yeah.
And that'd be it. It's the people in this world that make the world go round.
Absolutely. And what you're saying is that in looking at other people's story, that could be you. It reminds me, and I'm going to get a little fancy with you. There's a Latin quote that says, mutato nomine edite fabula narrator. Just change the name and the story could be of you. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty solid. Now I'm going to ask you to do the last thing that I ask of all my guests. See the camera there? Look into it, and I want you to say something to Tony in 10 years from now.
Wow. By now you've acted on what you were thinking about doing today in terms of your investment and your relationships with your family, and I'm proud of where you're at. And you've probably been through a hell of a lot between now and then to get there. And cheers to it being worthwhile for you. To good health for another 10 years.
Beautiful. Salud. I won't cheers because there's water, but
we can get more.
I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Always amazing. And, I guess next time I fly down to Chicago, let's keep this running.
Well, I'm super glad we didn't talk about the real estate market because who the hell knows what's going to happen.
And who cares? Who cares? You can AI that shit. But
how is it? It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable and it's unpredictable.
Exactly.
That's amazing.